1970s were not just a decade. They were 10 years of musical revolution that changed what popular music could be, what it could say, and how far it could reach. From stadium rock to disco floors, from soul to punk, the 70s produced songs so powerful and so deeply embedded in our collective consciousness that they stopped being music and became landmarks. These are the songs that everyone knows, the ones that play in your head the moment someone mentions the decade, the ones that define generations and continue to define what it means to make something truly timeless. Today we are counting down 15 of the most iconic songs from the 1970s. These are not deep cuts or forgotten gems. These are the titans, the songs that topped charts, broke records, changed genres, and became part of the permanent soundtrack of modern life. Stick around for number 1 because it is a song that was never released as a single, never had an official music video, and still became one of the most requested songs in radio history. That is the kind of decade we are talking about. If this countdown gave you chills, hit that like button and subscribe to Retro Rewind for more deep dives into the music that shaped the world. Tap the bell so you never miss a video. Share this one with someone who grew up on these songs or someone who needs to discover them for the first time, because the 1970s have something to say to every generation. We will see you in the next one. Number 15, Dancing Queen by ABBA, 1976. ABBA released Dancing Queen in 1976 and handed the world a song so perfectly constructed, so irresistibly joyful, and so universally beloved that it transcended language, culture, and every musical trend that followed. It was not just a pop song. It was a 4-minute invitation to feel 17 again, regardless of how old you actually were when you first heard it. The song reached number 1 in over a dozen countries including the United States, where it became ABBA's only chart topper on the Billboard Hot 100. In their home country of Sweden, it was played at the wedding reception of King Carl XVI Gustaf and Queen Sylvia the night before its official release, which is the kind of debut most songs can only dream about. Benny Andersson and Björn Ulvaeus wrote it with the deliberate intention of creating something that captured the pure joy of being young and dancing without a care. They succeeded so completely that the song has become the default anthem for that feeling in every decade since. The piano intro alone is enough to make an entire room of strangers start smiling at each other. What makes Dancing Queen iconic rather than simply popular is its emotional precision. It is not trying to be clever or complicated. It is trying to make you feel something simple and beautiful, and it does that every single time. 50 years later, the song still fills dance floors. It still makes people close their eyes and sway. That is not nostalgia, that is craftsmanship. Dancing Queen is the kind of iconic that needs no explanation. You hear the first 4 bars and you know exactly what is coming, and you are glad it is coming. ABBA built a perfect pop song, and the world has never stopped dancing to it. Quick question, where were you the first time you heard this one? Drop it in the comments. Number 14, September by Earth, Wind & Fire, 1978. Earth, Wind & Fire released September in 1978 and created what might be the most joyful 3.5 minutes in the history of recorded music. The opening horn riff is one of the most instantly recognizable sounds in pop, and once it starts, there is absolutely no human being on the planet who can remain still. The song reached number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100, which seems almost modest for a track that has become the universal soundtrack for celebration. It has been played at more weddings, parties, sporting events, and New Year countdowns than anyone could possibly count. The song is not just popular, it is essential. Songwriter Al McKay came up with the guitar riff at home and brought it to the band, who built the entire arrangement around it. When co-writer Allie Willis asked why the date in the lyrics was the 21st of September and whether something significant happened that day, Maurice White simply said he liked the way it sounded. There was no deeper meaning, the sound was the meaning. That answer tells you everything about why the song works. The genius of September is that it does not try to describe joy, it produces it. The arrangement is so tight, so layered, so rhythmically infectious that the song bypasses your brain entirely and goes straight to whatever part of you makes you want to move. It is music as pure physical experience, and it has been producing that experience without interruption for nearly 50 years. September is iconic because it is impossible to resist. It does not ask you to think about it or analyze it or place it in context. It asks you to dance, and every single time you do. Number 13, Superstition by Stevie Wonder, 1972. Stevie Wonder released Superstition in 1972 and delivered a masterclass in groove, funk, and sheer musical genius that remains one of the most electrifying recordings of the entire decade. The clavinet riff that opens the song is not just a hook, it is one of the defining sounds of the 1970s, instantly recognizable and completely impossible to imitate. The song reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won 3 Grammy Awards, including Best Male Pop Vocal Performance. It was the lead single from Talking Book, the album that announced Wonder as one of the most important artists of his generation, a status he would confirm repeatedly throughout the decade with a run of records that has never been equaled. The song was originally written for Jeff Beck, who had played guitar on some of the Talking Book sessions. Wonder had promised it to him, but Motown released Wonder's version first, which reportedly caused some tension between the two. Beck eventually recorded his own instrumental version, which is excellent, but Wonder's original is the one the world remembers. What makes Superstition extraordinary is how much it accomplishes with how little. The arrangement is lean and relentless. The clavinet, the drums, the horns, and Wonder's vocal all lock into a groove so tight that there is no room for anything unnecessary. Every element serves the rhythm, and the rhythm serves the feeling, and the feeling is irresistible. Superstition is iconic because it changed what a pop single could sound like. It proved that funk and mainstream pop were not separate categories but different expressions of the same impulse. Stevie Wonder was 22 years old when he recorded it. That fact alone is enough to make most musicians consider alternative careers. Number 12, Free Bird by Lynyrd Skynyrd, 1973. Lynyrd Skynyrd released Free Bird in 1973 and created a song that would become not just a classic but a cultural phenomenon. The 9-minute track begins as a gentle ballad about a restless soul who cannot be tied down and builds into one of the most ferocious guitar solos in rock history. A solo so famous that audiences have been shouting the song's name at live concerts for 5 decades. Despite never being released as a proper single in its full length, Free Bird became one of the most requested songs on FM radio in the 1970s. The live version from the album One More from the Road, recorded in 1976, stretches past 14 minutes and is considered by many fans to be the definitive version, a testament to the band's extraordinary power as a live act. Allen Collins and Ronnie Van Zant wrote the song together, with Collins providing the music and Van Zant the lyrics. The story goes that Van Zant's girlfriend asked him if he would always love her. His response became the song. The honesty of that origin, a man admitting he could not make promises he was not sure he could keep, gives the ballad section a weight that makes the eventual explosion into the guitar solo feel earned rather than gratuitous. The guitar solo itself, performed by Collins and Gary Rossington in tandem, has been analyzed, celebrated, and attempted by guitar players around the world for half a century. It builds in intensity over several minutes, layering harmonized leads over a driving rhythm section that refuses to let up. The solo does not just end the song, it transcends it. Freebird is iconic because it contains two songs in one and both of them are perfect. The ballad is tender and honest. The solo is explosive and liberating. Together they create something that has never been duplicated, only imitated, and the imitations always fall short. Is this your go-to karaoke song or the one you save for when nobody is watching? Let us know below. Number 11, I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, 1978. Gloria Gaynor released I Will Survive in 1978 and gave the world an anthem so powerful, so defiant, and so universally applicable that it stopped being a disco song almost immediately and became something closer to a declaration of independence. It is one of those rare recordings that people from every walk of life have claimed as their own.
Kept thinking I could never live without you by my side.
The song reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won the Grammy for Best Disco Recording, the only time that award was ever given. It was originally the B-side of a single, with the A-side being a song called Substitute that nobody remembers. Radio DJs flipped the record, audiences responded, and within weeks it was clear which song was the real hit.
I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong, and I grew strong.
Freddie Perrin and Dino Fakaris wrote the song and initially offered it to several other artists, none of whom wanted it. Gaynor herself was recovering from a serious back injury that had nearly ended her career when she recorded it, which gives the lyrics about survival and resilience a personal dimension that the writers could not have anticipated. Sometimes a song finds the right singer at the right moment and the combination becomes something neither could have achieved alone.
And I learned how to get along, and so you're back.
The cultural afterlife of I Will Survive has been extraordinary. It has been adopted as an anthem by the LGBTQ community, by the feminist movement, by anyone who has ever been through something difficult and come out the other side. It has been played at protests, at celebrations, at moments of personal triumph. The song belongs to everyone who has ever needed it.
From outer space, I just walked in to find you here with that sad look.
I Will Survive is iconic because it takes a simple message and delivers it with such conviction that it becomes genuinely empowering. Gloria Gaynor does not sing it as though she hopes she will survive. She sings it as though she already has. That certainty is the song's greatest gift.
Upon your face, I should have changed that stupid lock. I should have made you leave your key.
Number 10, Imagine by John Lennon, 1971. John Lennon released Imagine in 1971 and wrote what would become one of the most recognized and most debated songs in the history of popular music. It is a song about peace, about unity, about a world without borders or possessions or religion, delivered over a gentle piano melody so simple and so beautiful that it almost disguises how radical the ideas underneath actually are. The song reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 upon its original release and has since been covered hundreds of times, performed at Olympic ceremonies, played at memorials, and sung by crowds around the world as an expression of collective hope. After Lennon's assassination in 1980, it became something even larger, a permanent memorial to both the man and the ideals he expressed. Lennon later acknowledged that Yoko Ono deserved co-writing credit for the song, as its concept was heavily influenced by her book Grapefruit, a collection of instructional poems that use the word imagine as a repeated prompt. The acknowledgement was a long time coming, but it was honest, and honesty was something Lennon valued even when it was inconvenient. Critics of Imagine have pointed out the contradiction of a millionaire living in a Manhattan penthouse asking people to imagine no possessions. Lennon was aware of the irony and addressed it directly, saying the song was not about denying reality but about imagining an alternative. Whether you find that convincing or not, the song's emotional impact is not diminished by the argument. It works because it sounds like what hope sounds like. Imagine is iconic because it reduced an enormous idea to its simplest possible expression and trusted the melody to carry the weight. Lennon sat at a piano and asked the world to dream alongside him. 50 years later, the world is still dreaming. That is the power of a song that refuses to be anything other than completely sincere. Number 9, Let It Be by the Beatles, 1970. The Beatles released Let It Be in 1970 as the band was falling apart around them, and somehow, in the middle of all that disintegration, Paul McCartney wrote a song so calm, so reassuring, and so deeply comforting that it became one of the most beloved recordings in the history of popular music. The world was losing the Beatles, and the Beatles gave the world a lullaby. The song reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became the title track of the Beatles' final studio album, released a month after the band officially broke up. The timing gave the song an emotional weight that extended far beyond its lyrics. It was not just a song about finding peace. It was the Beatles saying goodbye.
Find myself in times of trouble. Mother Mary comes to.
McCartney has said the song came to him in a dream during a particularly stressful period of the band's final sessions. In the dream, his mother Mary, who had died when he was 14, came to him and told him everything would be all right. The phrase "let it be" was her reassurance. McCartney woke up and wrote the song almost immediately, which is the kind of origin story that makes you believe in something you cannot quite name.
Me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
The recording features Billy Preston on organ, whose gospel-influenced playing gives the track a spiritual quality that elevates it beyond a simple pop ballad. George Harrison's guitar solo, particularly in the album version, adds a layer of raw emotion that sits beautifully against the song's otherwise gentle arrangement. Every element serves the central message of acceptance and peace.
And in my hour of darkness,
Let It Be is iconic because it arrived at exactly the moment the world needed it and has never stopped being needed since. It is the song people turn to in moments of grief, of uncertainty, of quiet desperation. Paul McCartney's mother came to him in a dream and told him to let it be. He passed that message along to the rest of us. We have been grateful ever since.
she is standing right in front of me, speaking words.
Number 8, American Pie by Don McLean, 1971. Don McLean released American Pie in 1971 and produced an 8.5-minute epic that somehow became a number 1 hit, despite being twice the length of anything radio was comfortable playing. The song is a sprawling, cryptic, deeply American meditation on the death of Buddy Holly and the transformation of popular music and culture throughout the 1960s.
And I knew if I had my chance.
The song spent 4 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, which is remarkable for a track that requires flipping to the B-side of a 7-inch single to hear it in full. Radio stations initially refused to play it because of the length, then played it constantly because audiences demanded it. The public overruled the gatekeepers, which is itself a very American story.
That I could make those people dance, and maybe they.
McLean has famously refused to explain the lyrics in detail, saying they were written in a way that allowed listeners to find their own meaning. Over the decades, entire books and academic papers have been devoted to decoding the references, identifying the jester as Bob Dylan, the king as Elvis, the sacred store as the record shop where McLean first heard Holly's music. McLean has watched all of this interpretation with what appears to be quiet amusement.
Be happy for a while.
The phrase "the day the music died," which McLean used to describe the February 1959 plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper, entered the English language permanently because of this song. A songwriter coined a phrase and the entire culture adopted it. That does not happen often, and when it does, it tells you something about the power of the writing.
But February made me shiver with every.
American Pie is iconic because it tried to capture an entire decade of cultural upheaval in a single song and succeeded completely. It is ambitious, mysterious, deeply personal, and somehow communal at the same time. Everyone who has ever sung along to the chorus in a crowded room knows the feeling. The music did not die. Don McLean made sure of that.
Paper I deliver, bad news on the doors.
Number 7, Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, 1977. Fleetwood Mac released Dreams in 1977 as part of the Rumors album, and Stevie Nicks delivered a vocal performance so hauntingly beautiful that it turned a song about heartbreak into something that felt like floating. It reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the only Fleetwood Mac song ever to do so, which tells you something about the particular magic of this track. Nix wrote the song in about 10 minutes while sitting in a studio recording room with nothing but a piano and a velvet cushion. The band was in the middle of recording Rumors, an album born from the simultaneous breakups of two couples within the group, and the emotional tension in the studio was extraordinary. Nix channeled that tension into Dreams and produced something that sounds like the calm after a storm that is still raging. The song experienced a massive resurgence in 2020 when a TikTok video of a man skateboarding while drinking cranberry juice and lip-syncing to it went viral. The video was watched hundreds of millions of times and sent Dreams back onto the Billboard charts 43 years after its original release. Mick Fleetwood himself recreated the video, which was a generous and charming response to an unexpected second life. What makes Dreams extraordinary is its restraint. The lyrics are spare, the melody is simple, and the arrangement is built on a hypnotic rhythm section that Mick Fleetwood and John McVie lock into with absolute precision. There is space in the recording, room to breathe, and Nix's voice fills that space with a warmth and a sadness that are impossible to separate from each other. Dreams is iconic because it proved that a breakup song does not need to be angry or dramatic to be devastating. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to someone who has hurt you is that thunder only happens when it is raining. Stevie Nicks said it once, and the world has been listening ever since. Number 6, Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, 1975. Bruce Springsteen released Born to Run in 1975 and delivered a song so urgent, so cinematic, and so physically thrilling that it did not just launch a career, it defined an entire approach to rock and roll. The song sounds like what it feels like to be young and restless and desperate to escape and completely alive all at once.
In the end, nobody wins unless everybody wins.
The song reached number 23 on the Billboard Hot 100, which is misleadingly modest. Born to Run was never about chart position, it was about cultural impact. The album of the same name landed Springsteen on the covers of both Time and Newsweek in the same week, something that had never happened to a musician before and has never happened since. Springsteen spent 6 months recording the song, an agonizing process during which he nearly scrapped it multiple times. He was trying to create what he called a wall of sound that would capture everything he felt about growing up in New Jersey, about wanting something more, about the desperate romance of the highway at night. When the final mix was finished, he had achieved exactly that. The arrangement is enormous. Phil Spector-influenced layers of guitars, keyboards, saxophones, and percussion pile on top of each other until the sound is almost overwhelming. And then Springsteen's vocal cuts through all of it with a raw intensity that makes every word feel like it matters more than anything anyone has ever said. Clarence Clemence's saxophone solo is the sound of freedom itself. Born to Run is iconic because it captured the American dream at its most romantic and most desperate. It is a love song, a road song, a protest song, and a prayer all in one. Springsteen wrote it about tramps like us, and tramps like us have been singing it back to him ever since. Do you think this is the greatest rock song of the 70s? Tell us below. Number 5, Stayin' Alive by Bee Gees, 1977. The Bee Gees released Stayin' Alive in 1977 and created the definitive disco anthem, a song so perfectly calibrated to the era that it became the sound of the 1970s itself. The opening guitar riff, the falsetto harmonies, the strutting beat, everything about the song is designed to make you walk a little taller and move a little smoother. The song reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 4 weeks. It was part of the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, which became one of the best-selling albums of all time and turned disco from a genre into a global cultural phenomenon. The Bee Gees were at the center of all of it, and Stayin' Alive was the song that proved they belonged there. Barry Gibb has said that the song's tempo was established by the brothers walking down a street in Miami. They matched the rhythm of their footsteps and wrote around it, which is why the song has that distinctive strut that nobody can hear without unconsciously adjusting their walk. The song literally moves at the pace of human swagger. Beyond its disco legacy, Stayin' Alive has had an unexpected second life in medical training. The song's tempo of approximately 104 beats per minute is almost exactly the ideal rate for performing CPR chest compressions. Medical schools around the world now teach students to perform CPR to the rhythm of the song, which means Stayin' Alive is not just a metaphor, it is literally saving lives. Stayin' Alive is iconic because it is the song that defined an era and then outlived it. Disco came and went, but the Bee Gees' falsetto and that indestructible groove kept going. The song is still here, still making people move, still keeping the beat. That is staying alive in the truest sense. Number 4, Layla, by Derek and the Dominoes, 1970. Derek and the Dominoes released Layla in 1970, and Eric Clapton poured every ounce of his desperate, unrequited love for Pattie Boyd into a 7-minute recording that begins as one of the most ferocious rock songs ever made and ends as one of the most beautiful piano codas ever recorded. It is two masterpieces stitched together by heartbreak. The song initially failed to chart when it was first released, partly because the band's name disguised the fact that Clapton was involved. It was only after re-release in 1972 that it reached number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. The slow burn of its commercial success mirrors the song itself, which takes its time revealing the full depth of its emotional landscape. Clapton was inspired by the Persian love story Layla and Majnun, in which a man goes mad with love for a woman he cannot have. Boyd was married to George Harrison, one of Clapton's closest friends, and the situation was tearing Clapton apart. He channeled that torment into the song's famous guitar riff, a riff that Duane Allman of the Allman Brothers helped shape during the recording sessions at Criteria Studios in Miami. The piano coda that closes the song was composed by drummer Jim Gordon and was originally a separate piece entirely. Producer Tom Dowd suggested attaching it to the end of Layla, and the combination created something that moves from raw anguish to tender resignation in a way that no other rock song has ever achieved. The transition between the two halves is one of the great moments in recorded music. What will you do when you get older? Layla is iconic because it turned private agony into public art of the highest order. Clapton loved someone he could not have, and instead of suffering quietly, he made a record that burned with the intensity of that love. The guitar riff is unforgettable. The piano ending is heartbreaking. Together they tell a story that anyone who has ever loved hopelessly understands without needing a single word explained. Number 3, Hotel California, by Eagles, 1977. The Eagles released Hotel California in 1977 and wrote a song so atmospheric, so lyrically mysterious, and so musically perfect that it became one of the most analyzed and debated recordings in rock history. The 12-string guitar intro, the layered harmonies, and Don Henley's world-weary vocal create a mood that is simultaneously inviting and deeply unsettling. The song reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won the Grammy for Record of the Year. The album of the same name became one of the best-selling records in American history, cementing the Eagles as the defining band of 1970s California rock. The title track was the centerpiece of everything, the song that everyone knew and everyone had an opinion about. Don Henley and Glenn Frey wrote the lyrics as a commentary on the excess and hedonism of the Southern California lifestyle, though interpretations have ranged from Satanism to drug addiction to the decline of the American dream. Henley has said it is about the dark underbelly of the American dream, and the steely knives and the mirrors on the ceiling are metaphors for the traps of success and self-indulgence. The song's guitar outro, performed by Don Felder and Joe Walsh, is one of the most celebrated instrumental passages in rock. The twin guitar harmonies build and intertwine over an extended fade that was painstakingly arranged and rehearsed. Felder has said they spent days perfecting the interplay between the two guitar parts, and the result sounds both effortless and impossibly intricate. Hotel California is iconic because it captured something true about its time and place and then transcended both. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. That line has become shorthand for any situation that seduces and traps simultaneously. The Eagles wrote a song about California and it turned into a song about everything. That is what iconic means. Number 2, Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen 1975. Queen released Bohemian Rhapsody in 1975 and broke every rule that popular music had established about what a hit single should be. At nearly 6 minutes long, with no chorus, no repeating structure, and sections that shift from ballad to opera to hard rock without warning, it should not have worked. It became one of the most successful and beloved songs in the history of recorded music. No escape from reality. The song reached number 1 in the UK for 9 weeks upon its release and returned to number 1 again in 1991 after Freddie Mercury's death. In the United States, it reached number 9 originally and later climbed to number 2 after the 1992 film Wayne's World introduced it to an entirely new generation who proceeded to headbang to it in cars across America. Open your eyes. Mercury spent years developing the song in his head before bringing it to the studio. The operatic section alone required the band to overdub their vocals so many times that the tape became nearly transparent from repeated use. Brian May, Roger Taylor, and Mercury sang their parts for 10 hours a day over 3 weeks to create the layered harmonies that give the middle section its extraordinary power. Up to the skies and see. Mercury famously refused to explain what the song was about, saying only that it was about relationships. Over the decades, interpretations have ranged from a coming-out narrative to a retelling of the Faust legend, to Mercury processing his relationship with his family and his faith. The ambiguity is part of the song's enduring appeal. It means whatever you need it to mean, and it means it with absolute conviction. Bohemian Rhapsody is iconic because it proved that ambition has no ceiling. Freddie Mercury imagined a song that combined opera and rock and balladry into a single coherent piece of music, and then he went into a studio and made it real. The result is a song that 50 years later still sounds like nothing else that has ever been recorded. That is not just iconic, that is singular. Number 1, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin 1971. Led Zeppelin released Stairway to Heaven in 1971 and created the most iconic rock song of the 1970s, and quite possibly the most iconic rock song ever recorded. It was never released as a single, it never had an official music video, it never won a Grammy, and yet it became the most requested song in the history of American FM radio, a distinction it held for decades. That is the kind of iconic that does not need permission. The song was composed by Jimmy Page and Robert Plant during a session at Headley Grange, a remote country house in Hampshire where the band often recorded. Page has described the moment when the song's structure revealed itself as almost supernatural. The acoustic opening, the gradual build through the middle section, and the explosive electric climax all arriving in sequence as though they had always existed and were simply waiting to be found. The structure of Stairway to Heaven is what makes it extraordinary. It begins with a delicate acoustic guitar figure over a recorder melody that sounds almost medieval. It moves through a series of increasingly intense sections, adding electric guitar, drums, and vocal power as it goes, until it reaches the guitar solo. Page's solo is consistently voted one of the greatest in rock history, a passage of such emotional intensity that it elevates the entire song into something transcendent. The lyrics have been debated for over 50 years. Plant has said they were inspired by a combination of Celtic mythology, Lewis Spence's writings on the occult, and his own subconscious. The Lady Who Is Sure All That Glitters Is Gold has been interpreted as a commentary on materialism, spiritual seeking, and the human desire to buy meaning rather than earn it. Plant himself has acknowledged that the words came from a place he does not fully understand, which may be the most honest thing any songwriter has ever said about their own work. Stairway to Heaven is number one on this list because it represents everything that made 1970s rock music great. It is ambitious without being pretentious. It is complex without being inaccessible. It builds from silence to thunder and takes the listener on a journey that feels different every time you hear it. Led Zeppelin never released it as a single because they believed the song should be experienced in full and never reduced to a radio edit. The world agreed and played it in full anyway. That is the ultimate mark of an iconic song. It sets its own terms and the world accepts them.